When the EMD-FT rolled out in 1939, railroads witnessed the moment steam's reign began to crumble. The FT arrived with 1,350 horsepower per unit, 4 unit lash-ups pushing 5,400 horsepower, and a reputation for running cross-country without the breakdown cycles that plagued steam giants. Railroads tracked every mile, every gallon, every hour of service, and the numbers stunned them. This diesel roared with drama like Big Boy. It delivered something far more dangerous to steam: relentless efficiency. The FT could run over 100,000 miles between major servicing, burned cheaper fuel, required smaller crews, and proved its reliability on the 1939 to 1940 nationwide diesel demonstrator tour, where it hauled tonnage that left steam locomotives sweating to keep pace. By the time that tour wrapped up, the rail industry had a slap-in-the-face reality check. Big Boy was the final roar of steam power, but the FT? That quiet little diesel rolled in, didn't brag, didn't posture, and still killed a giant without even raising its voice. From that moment, steam wasn't in decline, it was on life support, and the diesel drip was already hooked up. Back then, American railroads were desperate. Steam engines ruled the continent, sure, but they were expensive, needy, and thirstier than a furnace on payday. Railroads were tired of babysitting boilers, shoveling coal, and pouring money into maintenance shops that ran like hospitals for overheated metal dinosaurs. They wanted a way out, and General Motors smelled the opportunity like blood in the water. While other companies were still polishing their steam trophies, GM went full mad scientist. Through Electromotive and Winton, they pumped a decade of cash and brainpower into diesel tech. Not the cute little switcher diesels everyone dismissed, but something bold enough to knock steam off its throne. They tore apart the two-stroke engine, rebuilt it, tweaked it, tested it, and shaped it into a weapon. And in 1939, they unleashed it. The EMD-FT was a declaration of war. Sporting the brand new 567 engine, 567 cubic inches per cylinder, because GM was not playing small. This two-stroke beast delivered brutal low-end torque that freight railroads drooled over. And unlike steam engines that needed armies of workers and constant TLC, the FT ran clean, smooth, and shockingly dependable. No soot, no tantrums, no boiling explosions. Just raw diesel muscle in a compact package. Then came the look, that iconic full-body car body. Streamlined, slick, almost arrogant in its design. It sliced through the air, protected its guts like armor, and turned heads everywhere it went. Underneath the style was the substance, a rugged frame, traction motors that bit into the rails like claws, and a powertrain ready to drag mountains if you asked it to. The FT arrived like a plot twist nobody saw coming. American freight railroads were drowning in problems, skyrocketing demand, steam engines wheezing into old age, and bosses desperate for anything that didn't require half the workforce just to keep running. Then the FT rolled in, cool and unbothered, offering something steam never could: heavy haul power without the drama. Railroad executives weren't stupid. They knew exactly what they were looking at. The FT wasn't just another shiny prototype. It was a full-blown rebellion on wheels. Built with standardized parts, long service cycles, and freight in its DNA. And steam? Steam suddenly looked like yesterday's hero stuck in last week's headlines. GM didn't stumble into greatness. They engineered it. Years of investment, relentless experimentation, and a corporate ego big enough to challenge the entire steam establishment led to the FT's creation. The 567 engine was GM throwing down the gauntlet. A 16-cylinder, two-stroke middle finger to every steam locomotive still clinging to relevance. And with the FT's birth, the countdown began. This was the moment that cracked open a transformation that would bulldoze its way across North America. The FT didn't earn respect politely. It took it by force. Its legendary reputation came from one thing. It delivered, day in and day out, under the kind of brutal freight conditions that made steam engines cry uncle. At its core was the 16-cylinder 567 engine, a mechanical sledgehammer built around three words: simple, tough, unstoppable. With each cylinder churning through 567 cubic inches, this beast pumped out 1,350 horsepower without breaking a sweat, even on mountain grades where steam engines were known to embarrass themselves. The Roots blower system? That was the secret weapon. It shoved fresh air into every cylinder like a bouncer clearing out a club, letting the FT hit low-end tractive power that steam locomotives had nightmares about. Heavy tonnage from a dead stop? Easy. Long hauls across hellish terrain? Done. High mileage duty cycles that would have sent a steam shop into meltdown? Light work. Power stormed through the generator and slammed straight into a set of traction motors that worked like the locomotive's personal hit squad. Forget the clunky mess of gears and rods steam relied on. The FT's diesel-electric setup delivered a smooth, weaponized punch of power across every speed. It accelerated like it had something to prove, and pulled like it held a personal grudge against the mountain in front of it. Instead of mechanical linkages rattling themselves toward their own funeral, the FT sent electricity directly to the wheels. Clean, controlled, no theatrics. Crews loved it because the locomotive didn't throw tantrums. Whether it was blasting across plains, muscling through mountain passes, roasting in desert heat, or crawling through grimy industrial sprawl, the FT behaved the same. Predictable, obedient, and ready to dominate. And railroads absolutely abused this capability. They started linking FT units together like they were building a mechanical megazord. An AB set threw down 2,700 horsepower, but a full ABBA lash-up? That was 5,400 horsepower of diesel attitude, all controlled from one cab like a single monster locomotive. These lash-ups mocked it, delivering mainline muscle without the fuel drama, the water stops, the breakdowns, or the full-time steam nursing staff. The FT's MU controls were the real magic. Precise, synchronized power that made multiple units behave like one unified beast. Steam locomotives needed 2 or 3 crews shouting at each other across boilers. The FT needed 1 crew, 1 cab, and 0 nonsense. Inside, the FT was built like a mechanic's dream, or steam's worst nightmare. Everything was laid out with logical, almost arrogant simplicity. Injectors, easy reach. Power assemblies, right there. Electrical cabinets and cooling systems, accessible without dismantling half the locomotive. Its air filtration kept dust, grit, and debris from destroying key components. And the cooling system handled brutal long-distance runs without breaking a sweat. A direct jab at steam engines, which needed water about as often as humans need oxygen. Put all that together and the FT became something steam simply couldn't compete with. A compact, streamlined, long-range freight assassin, with the endurance of a tank and the predictability of a machine built for the future. The 1939 to 1940 FT demonstrator tour was a nationwide smackdown. EMD didn't send out a brochure, a pamphlet, or a polite invitation to consider diesel power. No. They unleashed Locomotive 103, a 4-unit ABBA monster built for one purpose: to humiliate steam power on its own turf and in front of its own fans. From the jump, EMD threw the FT into the deep end. No staged photo ops, no lightweight trains, no carefully curated test tracks. Railroads across the country hooked the FT to their heaviest, meanest, most back-breaking freight. And the FT did exactly that, for 80,000 miles of real-world punishment across every landscape North America could throw at it. In the Rockies, where big steam usually strutted around like it owned the mountains, the FT walked in quietly and showed the giants their expiration date. It muscled up long grades with relentless tractive effort, pulling loads that made traditional steam wheeze like asthmatics in a marathon. In the desert, while steam engines baked alive and begged for mercy, the FT didn't even blink. Its cooling system shrugged off the heat like it was built in a furnace. On the Midwestern plains, the FT locked into a groove. Smooth, efficient, maddeningly consistent. delivering fuel economy so good the finance guys practically started drooling. And the East Coast? The FT took on those tight schedules and congested corridors like a machine built for chaos, delivering the same cool, controlled performance while steam crews watched, side-eyed and sweating. Railroad engineers, superintendents, and executives stalked this locomotive like it was a celebrity scandal waiting to break. Every stop turned into a ritual. Inspections, maintenance checks, performance logs, and every time the results were the same. Ridiculously good. Fuel logs revealed savings steam fans didn't want to believe. Tonnage reports showed adhesion numbers that made dispatchers double-check their math. Reliability logs documented long intervals without failures. And steam loyalists quietly panicked. The data spread faster than gossip. Meeting rooms buzzed. Mechanical departments whispered. Executives stared at the numbers like they were watching the future materialize right in front of them. The FT's crew were the diesel evangelists. The secret weapon EMD slipped into every railroad yard. These operators knew the FT inside out, and they didn't show up shy. They rolled in with confidence, working side by side with steam-era crews, and showing them a world where power didn't leak, engines didn't have meltdowns, and MU controls didn't require witchcraft to understand. They demonstrated everything. How to link units like one big mechanical organism. How the electrical systems behaved under stress. How servicing didn't require half a shop crew and a prayer. Mechanics poked around the modular assemblies, pulled open traction motor housings, and studied the cooling systems like they were examining alien tech. And then came the chaos. As the FT kept performing, the demand exploded. Railroads practically fought for time with the demonstrator. Divisions begged for their turn. Test periods got extended. New routes were added. In the end, more than 20 major railroads got their hands on 103. Santa Fe, Great Northern, Southern, Northern Pacific, Burlington, the heavy hitters. And guess what? A lot of them went from skeptical to signing purchase orders so fast, steam fans probably felt the wind shift. By the time the FT demonstrator tour finally wrapped, the conclusion was louder than a steam whistle. Diesel worked. And not in theory, not in a lab, but in the real, brutal world of American freight. The tour shifted the entire direction of U.S. railroading. Before the FT showed up, the diesel world was practically a talented but confused teenager, full of potential, but nowhere near ready to take on the heavyweight championship of American freight. Every manufacturer was tinkering, experimenting, bragging about breakthroughs, but nobody had built a diesel that could stare a steam locomotive in the face. The early 1930s diesel scene? It was dominated by switchers, the yard dogs of the railroad world. Alco had its HH units. EMC had the SC and SW series, dependable little machines that shuffled cars around like champs. They were clean, easy to fuel, and didn't need the constant babysitting steam required. Shop crews loved them, yard bosses loved them. But let's be honest, these units weren't built for glory. They stuck to yards, spurs, terminals, the diesel equivalent of stay in your lane. Sure, they were efficient. Sure, they made steam switchers look outdated. But long-distance freight, mountain grades, cross-country hauling, not happening. Meanwhile, diesel power tried flexing in the passenger world, and that's where things got glamorous. EMC rolled out the EA, E1, and E2, sleek machines that looked like rolling Art Deco sculptures. They led elite trains, dazzled crowds, and made steam look like an aging celebrity trying to stay relevant. Twin engines, high-speed gearing, aerodynamic bodies, these things were built to fly, not haul mile-long freights. Railroads loved them because they ran fast, ran clean, and didn't need a pit crew every 100 miles. They changed public perception. But freight service? Completely different beast. Passenger diesels were sprinters. Freight diesels needed to be heavyweight brawlers. And that's where every early diesel fell apart. Freight demanded insane torque, industrial-grade cooling systems, and engines that could grind away for days under full load without melting down. It demanded traction motors that could claw through mud, ice, grades, and whatever else the line threw at them. It demanded frames that wouldn't twist and electrical systems that wouldn't give up the moment a storm rolled in. But pre-FT diesels were all one-trick ponies. Yard specialists here, passenger showpieces there. No one had built a diesel that could do everything freight required, all in one package. No one had created a challenger powerful enough to take Steam's crown. Not yet. Because the locomotive that would do that was still being forged, and when it arrived, it would rewrite the rules. The industry had a dirty little secret it didn't like talking about. Steam locomotives absolutely hated teamwork. Multi-engine coordination? Forget it. Putting 2 or 3 steam engines on one train was less precision power and more 3 guys hoping the other isn't about to blow a cylinder head. Freight demand was exploding, and railroads needed a coordinated power system, not a chaotic parade of overheated boilers. Diesel developers saw the writing on the wall. If a freight diesel was going to dethrone steam, it needed to do more than pull hard. It needed to link up, sync up, and act like one giant machine. That meant standardized cables, unified controls, and a structural philosophy that treated multiple units as one organism instead of a disorderly pack of locomotives. It delivered exactly what freight needed. Flawless multiple unit operation. AB sets? Easy. ABBA lash-ups? Even better. 1 cab, 4 engines. Perfect synchronization. No steam-era chaos, no guesswork, no shouted hand signals between locomotives. And at the heart of each unit beat the 567 engine. All torque, all toughness, built to chew through long-haul freight like it was nothing. It shielded the locomotive's electrical muscles and mechanical organs from the brutal realities of cross-country service. And unlike early diesels that needed constant pampering, the FT stretched its legs for huge mileage intervals before needing major service. For mainlines stretching thousands of miles, this was a revelation. Before the FT, diesels excelled as yard dogs and glamorous passenger divas. But none could handle the raw, dirty, punishing world of freight. The FT changed everything. It fused endurance, multi-unit muscle, torque, and long-distance strength into the first true mainline freight diesel. And the industry never looked back. But steam wasn't going quietly. By the late 1930s, steam had reached its final form. The Union Pacific Big Boy was steam's last, loud, unstoppable flex. Massive firebox, towering boiler, an articulated frame the size of a small building. Big Boy hauled tonnage over the Wasatch Range like a mechanical colossus. But those giants came with baggage. Literal baggage. Steam power ran on infrastructure. Coaling towers, water tanks, ash pits, roundhouses, boiler shops, firemen, pipe fitters, machinists, an entire industrial ecosystem working non-stop just to keep those monsters alive. Every trip required frequent stops for water, lubrication, and cleaning. Every mile relied on a web of support stretching across the continent. The FT brought a new philosophy. Long-distance consistency with a fraction of the infrastructure. No towers, no tanks, no fireside rituals, just fuel, modular components, standardized parts, and predictable service intervals based on running hours instead of soot, stress, and steam pressure. A 2 or 4 unit FT could match Big Boy era steam power, and it didn't need an entire city of support to do it. For crews, the difference was night and day. The FT didn't demand mastery of firing rates, boiler timing, or steam dynamics. Power came from throttle positions tied to electrical systems. Smooth, repeatable, drama-free. Scheduling improved because the locomotive itself was consistent. Mechanical departments rejoiced at engines built around replaceable assemblies instead of intricate, unforgiving boiler systems. And nowhere was the contrast more brutal than on mountain grades. Steam trains hit steep slopes with surges, fluctuations, and slipping dramas that crews knew all too well. The FT? It attacked mountains with a cold, steady electric calm, delivering tractive effort at low speeds like it was wired to the earth itself. Continuous horsepower, relentless adhesion, zero theatrics. Railroads watched the drama unfold and came to one sharp conclusion. Steam might roar, but diesel, the FT, wins. It introduced a freight economy built for the future, not the past. Its infrastructure needs lined up perfectly with a modern America. Fuel from refineries already pumping. Service points that didn't need an entire village of steam workers. And performance so consistent that dispatchers could finally schedule trains without factoring in unexpected boiler tantrum. Steam legends like Big Boy still towered over the rails with mythic presence. Mechanical gods forged in steel and fire. But the FT showed up with tech that matched the new priorities of American railroading: efficiency, predictability, and endurance. Not brute force, but smart power. This clash, steam's final peak versus diesel's first triumph, marked one of the most dramatic turning points in railroad history. Steam had its golden moment in the Big Boy era, but the FT arrived like a quiet revolution, guiding the entire industry into a future built on sustained power, lower overhead, and a philosophy rooted in doing more with less. Then, the world went to war, and suddenly the FT was strategic gold. World War II pushed railroads to the limit. They needed locomotives that didn't swallow labor hours, didn't guzzle resources, and didn't collapse under punishing wartime loads. The FT delivered on every front. By the mid-1940s, the Santa Fe, Great Northern, Southern Railway, and more were ordering FTs in bulk. Some divisions went diesel practically overnight, and the numbers backed up the hype. More freight moved, less money burned, fewer breakdowns. Steam simply couldn't keep up. The FT became the blueprint. Its success birthed an entire dynasty. The F2, F3, F7, each one defining the FT's DNA with better electrical systems, stronger cooling, smarter controls, and fleets designed for nationwide standardization. Railroads suddenly had machines that shared parts, shared training, shared maintenance cycles, a mechanical dream steam could never offer. Budgets shifted, shops shifted, whole philosophies shifted. Steam orders shriveled, retirement rosters grew. By the early 1950s, many railroads had already drawn up the hit list for their steam fleets. Across mountains, deserts, frozen plains, and cross-country corridors, diesel sets delivered the same message again and again. Consistent power beats heroic power, every time. Big Boy became the ultimate symbol of what steam was. The FT became the symbol of what railroading would become: efficient, dependable, modern, and built for the long haul.